So hi everyone, thank you for coming to our 4-day event series on women's history. So all the SWE general body members came together for this 4-day event series that was thought up by our treasurer, Juliana. So everyone, big round to Juliana for putting this all together. She's been working on this for months. And we're all really excited for it. So yeah, we had a lot of general body members want to participate and help us plan these events. So each event was planned out and executed by a committee, and there's 4 different committees. So we are clubs and sororities for their day 1. I'm Julia. I'm a junior bioinformatics major, and I'm the president of SWE.
I'm Emily. I'm a sophomore mechanical engineer.
I'm Tatiana. I'm a sophomore biomedical engineering major.
And I'm Jolena. I'm a sophomore chemical engineering major.
And my name is Catherine, and I'm a sophomore mechanical engineer.
We also have a few more people on our team that have to show up late, but they were a big part of this too, Drea and Mira. So let's get started. So the first sorority on campus was Phi Sig, and they were the first one for a while. They were founded in 1977, and it was kind of, I think, the very first sense of sisterhood and just a place for women to bond and gather on a male-dominated campus, which is still the case for today, but we definitely have a lot more women organization groups, which is awesome. So now they have over 100 active members, and they have received the Sorority of the Year for the past 2 years. They're one of 6 sororities on our campus. And so to talk about Phi Sig, we have Joan. She was the first president of Phi Sig at WPI, and she was one of the founding members. So Joan, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more in your background.
Thanks, Julia. First, I'll correct it. I wasn't the first president of Phi Sig. I was one of the founding members. So there was a group of, I think there was 13 of us, 12 of us. I should know that number. That was a founding member. But as the slide says, I graduated in 1979. Actually, my husband and I are both 1979 grads. His brother's a WPI grad, 1980, and his wife, Carla, was a 1984 grad and a Phi Sig as well. So Phi Sig's kind of been connected in our family for, and certainly WPI for our whole life since college. I have been a trustee for the last 10 years at WPI, so it's been a great way to get reconnected. Although I've always stayed involved with the school. I ran our reunion campaign and for our 20-year campaign, our 25-year campaign. So for me and for my husband, Dave, WPI really is what set us off to very successful careers. And so we have always wanted to give back and be part of it. Was very involved on campus. As I said, we was a founding member of Phi Sig. I also was on the first volleyball team. I didn't play volleyball before I went to WPI, but that was when women were just beginning to go up pretty significantly in numbers. We had a grand total of 100 women on campus my freshman year across all 4 years. And we had 40 in our freshman class out of a class of a little over 400. So 10% was this huge number for women in a class back then. So they were starting a lot of sports for women. And so I played volleyball all 4 years, and it was another wonderful experience. I was also a member of SWE, Student Alumni Association, for a variety of things. I worked for Procter & Gamble for almost 35 years in research and development, designing consumer products, and left there. And in the last 4 years ago now, my husband and I took over a winery called Samsara Wine Company that we had known the owner and had been buying for years. So we now own a small winery in Santa Barbara, California. So kind of an interesting series of lifestyle, and it's been fun. I've been reconnecting with other alum of WPI that are living out here. One that has bought vineyards up in Paso Robles, a little ways from here, and then another woman alum who just moved to Santa Barbara and that's a WPI alum. So It's always fun reconnecting with WPI alum, no matter what year they were in school, even if you didn't know them when you were there. It's a bond that will last you all for years.
Thank you so much for being here again. So we do have some prepared questions for Joan, but if anyone has any questions right off the bat, feel free. We're going to stop the presentation while we talk for a little bit. So does anyone have anything they'd like to ask Joan right off the bat? All right. Something that our group wanted to know was how did like Phi Sig and the first sorority come about being founded on campus? What was your role in it? Was there like an inspiration for wanting to be the first sorority on campus?
I think it was simply the women wanting to have a group that we could create to come together, because back in the 70s, fraternities were a much bigger percentage of the social life on campus than they are today. So the number of fraternities, and I bet if I went back, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I bet if I go back and look at the numbers, the number of men in fraternities in the 70s was roughly the same number that were in the fraternities today. And yet the school is 4 times larger. So fraternities really dominated the social life. And back in the 70s, when we were there, the drinking age was 18. So there were parties at all the fraternities, and that was kind of the life. No one ever really left campus other than to left campus or where the fraternities were. There was a party, a fraternity every night. They wouldn't start till 9 or 10 because people were studying, but there was stuff going on pretty much every night that you could be part of. And so they were very, very strong part of the socialization, and they all had personalities like they do now, like, and, the most fun one for me is the difference. My husband was a Cap, and, Cap back then and Cap today have very, very different personalities, because that was kind of one of the jock houses. That's where, a lot of the sports guys were members of Cap. And some of the fraternities, as I meet students today, have the same personality that they did back then, and some have evolved over the 40 plus years. But we really wanted a place that we could come together and get the same camaraderie that we saw some of the fraternities having. And so then it was like, okay, so if we're going to start a sorority, how do we go about doing this, and what sorority should it be? So if you think about Phi Sig, we're attracted to Phi Sig because it was not your typical sorority coming out of the South, where it was all about how you dressed and very traditional in approach. Phi Sig was founded as a Jewish sorority back when Jewish women weren't allowed into many of the more established sororities. It was also already established at RPI. So it had already made inroads into STEM schools. And as being a sorority that was more welcome and open to diversity in what we wanted a sorority to be. And so that was real attractive to us. And so that's what made us go with Phi Sig as the sorority. It just felt right. And that's why it felt right, because it wasn't like you have to act this way or you have to do things this way to fit in with what we're trying to do as Phi Sigma Sigma. And again, back then, there were so few women on campus. We all lived on pretty much one floor of Riley and a few in the started apartments. There were no co-ed floors. And then we expanded to 2 floors in Riley. But so you knew everyone, you knew all the women on camp that were living on campus, but there was a number of us, and we were predominantly all class of 79. Karen Chesney, who actually was our first president, she was technically class of 78, but she was a transfer. And so she was sort of halfway between the class of 78 and 79, but we were pretty much all class of 79, so sophomores at the time. So we'd been around a year plus. We'd seen what was going on campus, and we just really wanted to establish a sorority. Um, and it was a very motivating thing for us to do. You know, not all the women we were good friends with chose to pledge. That was fine. We were still all great friends. But for those of us that did pledge, it brought us together in a whole different level of friendship. Um, two of my roommates, I lived in Stoddard my freshman year because we had a few more women than planned. So I had 5 of us in an apartment. And the 3 of us who all ended up graduating from WPI, the other 2 transferred, all became Phi Sig. So, you know, it became a very close group, and that's what we were looking for: the chance to bond, the chance to spend time with women that you were having common experiences with. And you know, as I mentioned, back then there was 40 women in a class of over 400. You know, we used to, and we still at that point, and I just saw the announcement today about Becker shutting down, which is really, really sad for Becker. But when, you know, and when I was there, Becker was pretty much a junior college and 90% female. And so a lot of the guys at WPI ended up marrying women from Becker because it was kind of, they used to be the cheerleaders at WPI back in the 60s. So I was there when there was beginning to be women there, but still very, very few. You know, you never were in a class that there were more than a couple women in it. And you still were dealing with a lot of guys and professors acting like, gee, do you guys really belong here? And so having something that we could get really close with a group of 30 women, so it was very, very nourishing for us at that time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities in why, like, women, everyone want to join sororities and women specific clubs, because I mean, we still kind of do struggle with some of the same stuff of being male dominated WPI, even though it's definitely much more. It's a lot closer to 50-50 now, but you still feel that, like, yeah, you want that support from women specifically.
Yeah.
Here.
One thing that's always surprising to me, and I've talked this with several of my mentees who are Phi Sigs, is how large the sororities are now. Yes. And with the size of the sororities, do you have that same bonding and relationship when you got 125 or 30 women in a sorority versus 50 or 60? So that you really get to know each other really, really well.
Yeah, it is a lot harder to know every single person in the sorority size now. I don't think that happens, especially with the pandemic. It's been hard, but in regular years, it was definitely fun. You did try and get to know everyone, but you definitely found that close, at least group of like 20 people really close with. Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience with that. We're gonna move on to the next panelist. And we can come back for questions at the end if we have time. So next up, we're going to talk about Alpha Phi.
I'm talking about Alpha Phi. So the first thing, Alpha Phi, WPI's Alpha Phi Iota Omicron chapter was founded in 2011. And now the sorority has received numerous awards from the WPI Greek Alumni Council, including Chapter of the Year in 2014 and 2015. So our next panelist is Pamela Sullivan. She was the first president of Alpha Phi. Pamela, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Pam. Nice to meet you all. Joan, I have to say it's going to be hard to follow up after you, but yeah, so I graduated in 2012 from WPI with BS in biotechnology. Honestly, when I was on campus, like the only thing I was really involved in was Alpha Phi. I was part of the pause group for like animal support, but you know, I wasn't super involved. And so like Alpha Phi actually is like so special to me because it was kind of the only organization that I really like threw myself into and became heavily involved in. And then especially becoming president, like it was just a lot of time and effort, like starting up the chapter. So it, like I said, for me, it like means a lot. And it was kind of like my main focus when I was at school and on campus. And especially it's exactly like everything Joan was saying, when I was there, it was about like 1/3 of the campus was females. But at the time, like there was only 3 sororities. So it was just Phi Sig, AZD, and Alpha Gam. So when like my sorority came in, it was kind of at a point where there were enough girls that wanted and had interest in being in a sorority like myself, but the 3 chapters that they had at the time could only take so many during recruitment. So there was a lot of us that didn't end up joining sororities and wanted to be a part of it and have that belonging to that women's group and that friendship with a lot of the girls on campus. So it definitely came at the right time for me, and I'm very like fortunate and lucky that it came to campus when it did. But yeah, my time at WPI is, when I think of it, Alpha Phi is always a part of those memories. But after I graduated, I went to work at Bristol Myers Squibb and the manufacturing group for 6 years. So I did 3 years in the commercial manufacturing, and then they started up a clinical manufacturing building. So I was a part of that startup, and I worked in the clinical building for 3 years. And then now I'm currently working at Vertex Pharmaceuticals in the Seaport in Boston. We make drugs for cystic fibrosis. So I'm in the quality assurance group. So we're just reviewing everything that's made for the drug to make sure that it meets compliance and the standards and FDA requirements and everything like that. So it's definitely been, WPI helped me kickstart my career and get things going as far as a job and moving that part of my life along. But Alpha Phi and like having that connection on campus and being a part of the organization, made a difference for me and like my friendships and like the people that I still even stay in contact with today. And my husband actually went to WPI as well. He was in Zeta Psi. So the 2 of us are still like great friends with like all of our like brothers and sisters from the school. We'd come back at like homecoming and stuff like that. So it's definitely near and dear to my heart. But yeah, that's kind of an overview of me. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Julia, wants to ask me some, but it's kind of the overview.
I can ask a quick question.
Sure.
Where were there struggles in like forming AFI and like building it up to what it is?
Yeah, so I mean, when it first came, like I said, the group of us that were founding members all had like a desire to want to, be involved and start this chapter on campus and make it successful. Like that was a common goal that we all had, because we all honestly joined at different years on campus. And to be completely honest with you guys, it wasn't even until my junior year that it came to campus and joined. So freshman and sophomore year, like I wasn't in a sorority, and I just thought that that's how my college experience was going to go. I kind of threw myself into the fraternities, honestly. And and like I said, I dated my husband throughout college. So like I was jealous that he had his fraternity and like his friends, and like he was always going to these things with the guys, and I didn't have that. And my best friends to this day from college, one of them's or 2 of them are in AZD. I have a friend that's Phi Sig, and then I had 2 Alpha Gam friends. So like I was friends with all the girls, and everyone was I know that they did like continuous open bidding and stuff after recruitment and everything, but I know like a lot of us didn't really feel like, I don't know, I guess like we like fit in or like belonged in those sororities. So it just felt like, okay, I guess like this isn't meant for me. So when it came, and that's when I found out like I wasn't the only one that felt that way, because when it came to campus and it was presented as, hey, we're going to bring this new sorority in, And what happened is they actually brought in a few different sororities from different schools, and they all kind of gave like a presentation. So you would go and you would see the presentations of the different sororities that like the school was considering. And then at the end, and like people got to like vote and stuff. And then at the end, they chose based off of like what they thought was best for this school and this area and like Worcester, but then also like what like, you know, the women thought would be the best for the campus. And so Alpha Phi was the one that was picked. So yeah, when we went through that recruitment and we joined and became the founding members, you know, we all were so passionate and like so excited to want to get going. So we were very determined and we had that common goal, but you know, it wasn't easy. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. And like I said, I just thought, especially myself, that I wasn't ever like going to be in a sorority. So it happened so quick. And then when we finally were the founding members, you know, we were very lucky because they brought in people from other schools like around the country that came from other Alpha Phi chapters to our campus to teach us about like Alpha Phi in general, but then also like get us going on campus. So like marketing was a huge thing for us because that like we were finally gonna like show the campus, show WPI, Greek life, but then like literally the whole campus. And then even Worcester, like we were in the paper and everything as a new sorority. So like we had to really make a really good impression. Alpha Phi's reputation meant everything to me. And we just wanted to make sure that we put our best foot forward and that, you know, everyone was accepting of us, because that was the biggest fear, was that people weren't going to accept us and that they, you know, they didn't think that we, you know, we were too new, we didn't know what we were doing, we weren't prepared enough for something like that. So it was just like the effort and the time that we had to really put into making decisions about how we wanted to present ourselves, how we wanted to market ourselves, the different events like on campus, like we'd set up like booths and tables and just kind of making sure that we were all in alignment as a group about the way that we were being like presenting ourselves to, you know, the public and to people on campus, and that we all were showing like the same message about like what our brand is and what we wanted to do as a new chapter. So it was tough, you know, because not like, you know, we had to be aligned about that. So there would be a lot of meetings and discussions, and like the executive board would have to make sure that we were always on the same page. And, you know, that's not always the case. You bring in, you know, all these girls and everyone's passionate about stuff. But again, we didn't always see eye to eye about maybe different things that we would want to do. But at the end of the day, you know, we would make the decisions. And I don't know, I'm pretty proud of the way things kicked off, at least before I left. Yeah, I mean, it was just the time and effort to have to put into it was a lot. And even going through recruitment for the first time, like it was all just new experiences for all of us. And we were just doing the best that we could to show everyone that we knew what we were doing, while at the same time telling ourselves like, yeah, you can do this, even though we were like scared out of our minds half the time. But yeah, it all worked out well. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
I think it did. Thank you. That was a really good experience to hear about. And yeah, I mean, Alpha Phi seems to be doing great on campus now. So thanks for your work and your effort.
Sure.
So Catherine, if you want to, I'll share my screen again.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about the athletic side of women's history and achievements at WPI. So in 1973, Nancy Woods Popenchuk and Sue Dawson created the women's first varsity rowing team. And this was one of the first women-oriented sports at WPI and really opened the door for the future of club sports for women on campus. So on the next slide, you'll see a quote from Popenchuk about rowing, where she says that it was necessary to make it so that they could balance their rigorous courses and studies and really build these strong friendships through training and rowing. And so she says, consistent with every aspect of our WPI experience, we faced the hardships and difficulties that came with blazing the trail. So they definitely did blaze the trail for so many future female athletes at WPI, and they encompassed the hardships and difficulties that we all face every day. So on the next slide, since then, women's varsity rowing has achieved so much, including claiming silver medals at the NCAA Division III Women's Rowing Championship, which remains the most ever achieved by a team at a national championship in the history of WPI athletics, which is pretty great. Pope and Chalk and Dawson probably had no idea how much the team would accomplish when they first created it, but they knew that it would pave the way for future women at WPI to achieve great things in athletics and just in general on campus. So now we're going to go into kind of a more recently formed club, which is the Women's Club Ice Hockey Team.
All right, everyone. Hello. So yeah, as Kat said, we're talking about women's club ice hockey. So back then in the old days of 2018, there was no official women's club team. So they either had to play with the boys team or not at all, which is pretty frustrating, I could imagine. So in 2019, two sophomores formed the women's club ice hockey team, and we're actually going to be hearing from them in a few minutes. So it's super exciting. So right now, the club actually has over 20 members, and it's still growing. So that's super, super exciting to see how even in like 2 to 3 years, it's grown so much. So right now we're going to hear from Eliana Paradise and Emily Gordon, who were the Women's Hockey Club founders. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Eliana. I'm a senior mechanical engineering major. I'm hoping to go to med school in the future. And on campus, I'm a part of the Pre-Med Honor Society, and I'm also a cellist in the orchestra.
I'm Emily. I'm a senior biology biotechnology major. On campus, I'm also a member of Phi Sig, and after I graduate this spring, I'm going into veterinary school this fall.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So we have a question for you all, or for both of you. So we were wondering, what was it like to play on the boys hockey team first, and how did this affect why you wanted to create a women's specific hockey team?
So we've both played competitive hockey since a young age and wanted to play in college. We both participated in a lot of showcases for colleges throughout high school to be recruited, and despite having offers from other schools to play, I chose, and I think Emily also chose WPI just because both of our priorities were in academics. And when we chose WPI, we were both informed that the club team was co-ed and that they actually had a female goalie practiced with them on occasion. So we were just under the impression that we would be able to play to some degree. But then when we actually started playing the boys team our freshman year, we found that we were really missing out on like the team and like camaraderie aspects of playing the sport. And we really just didn't feel a part of the team, especially because we didn't even use like the same locker rooms or anything like that. So we really just had each other, and we just were really motivated to expand and get that companionship and team dynamic that we were missing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. That was really interesting. So yeah, next we're going to hear from the Women's Mechanical and Materials Engineering Club, just to hear about how they got started. And yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any more questions for Eliana or Emily, feel free before we move on if you want to ask a question. Or you can type it in the chat and we can come back to it at the end, definitely. So yeah, now we'll hear from the Mechanical and Materials Engineering Club.
So back then, WPI only had a mechanical engineering society for men and women. So both were still included, but obviously there's a lot more men, so women were kind of being dominated. But in 2020, we now have the first women-specific mechanical and materials engineering club on campus. So to talk to us today about that, we have Shannon, Eliana, and Professor Nora. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves more.
Hi, my name's Shannon and I'm a mechanical engineering major. and I'm hoping to minor in sustainability engineering, and I'm graduating next year in 2022. And I'm the founding chair of Women in Mechanical Materials Engineering, and I also work at the Rec Center on campus, along with doing research for Professor Nara. Yeah.
Eliana, are you here?
Sorry, my Wi-Fi just cut out. I'm Eliana. I'm also a mechanical engineering major, and I'm concentrating in biomechanics, and I'm in the class of 2022. I am the VP of WMME, and I just recently won a grant for my MQP device, and I'm also going to be in the NSFI core program with that. Outside of Women in Mechanical Engineering, I'm also in SWE, and I didn't put it in there, but I'm also in the Greek Club on campus.
Hi, I'm Sneha Nara. I'm an assistant professor in the mechanical engineering department at WPI. So I joined WPI in the fall of 2018. My research is in the area of advanced manufacturing and materials. And at WPI, I teach introduction to statics and additive manufacturing. And like this term, I'm also introducing a new course on applied machine learning for mechanical and materials engineering. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Thank you all for sharing. Does anyone have any questions for Women in Mechanical Materials Engineering?
So they're a new club, so we're gonna let them promote themselves a little bit really quick here. So I don't know if Shannon or Eliana, you wanna go ahead. I put your slides in here.
Yeah, I can take over. So hi everyone. As you guys just heard, I'm joined by Eliana and Professor Nara. Sorry, there's a car. First, I wanted to thank you all for having us here to speak at this event. And I wanted to just explain really quickly the purpose of our club for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Our goal is to foster a sense of community and belonging for the women majoring in both mechanical and materials engineering here at WPI. This group hopes to connect everyone from first-year students to master's and PhD students. And our objective is to share resources, opportunities, and discover new interests, both academically and non-academically. And we want to create a community of support to aid in students' professional journey and success. And our events that we have are shown on this slide. And we accomplish our goals by hosting events like the one shown. And we hope to connect everyone with resources that they didn't know that they had or resources that they weren't sure how to find in order to help them on their journey here. So far, we've had a town hall and a movie night where we showed Picture a Scientist, and we had a Women in Mechanical and Materials Engineering panel where we had previous WPI alums shared their experience working in the field of mechanical or materials engineering. And all of the events that we've had are very fun and educational. And even though we're just getting started, it's nice to start to see familiar faces from event to event. And also as a side note, we're in the process of becoming an official recognized club on campus. So if you keep your eyes out for us table sitting in the CC or for our signature form that will hopefully be going around on social media in the near future, it would be helpful to get a few signatures on that. And then you can also join us on Slack and on Instagram with these codes right here.
So if anyone wants to join, please feel free to scan those codes or check them out on their Instagram. While you guys are doing that, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I have one. What was your inspiration for founding the club?
I would say me personally, it was probably Professor Nara because she approached me and a couple of other students with the idea. And it was always something that I was looking for on campus, but not something that I had, like a woman specific group for our major. So when she approached me with that idea, I was like really excited about it because I just wanted to meet more, I guess, girls in my major, because I had like a lot of friends from freshman year and everything like that, but I just felt like I only had like one or two friends who were majoring in mechanical engineering. And it's like sometimes when I was like looking for like a partner in a group in a class, or like someone to work on homework with, or like just people to reach out to and talk about things, like I felt like I was lacking that. So I feel like this community, like creating a community, is what I guess inspired me to want to help start it. I'm not sure if Professor Nara has anything to add on that as well.
So for me, the motivation was like mentors in my professional journey had played a key role in the decisions I made, both professional and personal. And like just from finishing my undergrad in India and coming to the US, deciding to do a PhD, and then just continuing in this academic journey, like without my mentors, I probably wouldn't have landed here. So I appreciate the importance of having people who could relate to what we are going through and who could provide very relevant advice. Again, it's not just women engineers, but women engineers who are in the fields that we work in. That also plays a huge role, because even now as a faculty member, I look up to my mentors who have gone through the same process that I'm going through now. And one common thing that I hear when I approach someone who is not in mechanical engineering is, this is what we have experienced, but I'm not sure about an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. Probably you should talk to someone who are in that field and who teaches certain courses or applies to certain grants. So I think that major specific advice is also very helpful. So overall, I believe I benefited a lot, right? So I was a beneficiary of having mentors throughout my journey. So I think it is time for me to give back. So that's how the idea was born, and I approach students that I know in my research group. But I'm very proud to see how others, like I see Eliana here, like how everyone came together and are moving this forward at such a fast pace. So I'm very happy about it, and I appreciate this opportunity to kind of publicize our new club on campus.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. That's a very inspiring journey. I love to hear about all the mentors. I agree. We all need strong women mentors to look up to in engineering because it gets hard. So now we want to do some poll everywheres and ask the audience and the panelists, feel free to speak up or answer these through poll everywhere. So yeah, you can just go online or on the app and type in the link, and then I don't know if this is blocking it, but our question is, why are women-oriented clubs and sororities impactful to campus life for female and non-binary students? I know we'll all have a lot of different opinions, but sharing the same common theme. So we wanted to hear from the audience. Yeah, I think all these do share a common theme in that probably a lot of us would be struggling a lot more if we didn't have the women around us and our peers and our teachers, our mentors, our advisors to help us through that. I think it does bring you a long way, and it's engineering so hard, like you do feel stuck sometimes. And I think for me personally, the things that have gotten me out of that like rut has just been seeing my friends succeed and do so well, and like them encouraging me and knowing that, you know, it's possible, you just have to keep going, and with support that makes it a whole lot easier. Yes, I love how we are alike and different at the same time. That's definitely so true. Yes, we have to be respected as women on campus. That's so true. We do have a place on campus and we need to keep it that way. And we need to show how much we're accomplishing, which is a lot. All right, we'll move on to the next one. So how does representation within student organizations affect confidence of individual students and women, specifically like having this representation for women and non-binary students on campus to join these support groups and clubs? They're going so fast. Oh my God. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Sorry. We're starting over. Sorry about that. Yeah, sharing our passions with women. Yeah, feeling included is a big part of it. That's what sororities and clubs, I think. That's what, yeah, that's a big theme. Yeah, I agree. When you see your friends doing so well and everyone else, it kind of inspires you. Yep. Me too. SWE has helped me a lot with my confidence and with networking. Yeah, I think you can feel empowered in your like day-to-day life on campus and on class. And then I feel like that definitely continues once you build that confidence into like job interviews and getting in the workforce later in life. I think if you've built that confidence now and that connection with women, it's really going to take you a long way. And that's why these are so important. Like Joan and like Pam said, and Professor Nara, I think just that's kind of what helped them along their journey. And I think that's what will help us along our journey in the future. So thank you for coming to day one, A Woman's History, A Glance Over the Years. So we do have some extra time for questions. If anyone wants to ask anything, we kind of just wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to speak. But we did have some more questions for the panelists if anyone wanted to ask specifically, or we can keep talking about it. But if you have to go, feel free to go. Thank you for coming. But yeah, we definitely have time for some more questions if we all want to chat.
I had a question for Joan and Pam. When you were founding the sororities on campus, did you notice, like, I know you said you both founded them to be part of something like how fraternities had their own like culture. Did you notice like any inequalities between the sororities and fraternities when you were starting them?
From the university's point of view, I was hugely supportive of us as the first sorority on campus. And my sense is they continue to be, because they want more sororities to be in support of women's, that there's enough for any woman that wants to join one. So they were very supportive of us. In fact, that house that you saw that picture of us all at, that was actually a property that the school owned on Elbridge Street that they were using and renting to students rooms in the house, and they allowed us to rent the whole house out. So it was like on-campus housing, but they held it just for Phi Sig, so we could have our own place. before we were able to be established enough to actually have a house through the sorority. So I'd say the school was hugely supportive of us. I think the fraternities overall were supportive as well, because they looked at it and I think they were happy to see the sororities starting up. Were there challenges? Yes, there's always challenges, but I think it was it was much more difficult. I think the women went through much more difficult challenges in the classrooms or in project teams or wherever, where there was less support for us than there was on the side of establishing a sorority to get experience like the men had in fraternities. I mean, at that point, you know, the Greek system was still pretty much all male when we were just us. So we were Greek, but there wasn't like there was a Greek council that we were part of and so on in those early years.
Yeah, I mean, when you mention inequalities, I mean, thinking about it, I feel like there were definitely some differences. I mean, I don't know how it is today, but like there definitely are differences or were differences between the sororities and the fraternities. Just as far as like, you know, I already knew about the differences because having been on campus, so I was aware of them my junior year when Alpha Phi got started, but I did find it interesting the differences between the fraternities and the sororities that were already established on campus in regards to example, like, you know, with the guys, the recruitment process is much different. Or again, like I don't know if things have changed, but it was much different. Like they have like rush week and all of that, and there's a whole process where they're coming to the houses. And it was kind of open where like the freshman guys could go to any fraternity that they wanted and attend these like rush week and all the events that they would have. And so like, you know, the fraternities would have them throughout the week, and it would be like each night would be like a different theme, and they do like a casino night and different things like that. While for sororities, it's totally different. It's a different time of year, and the process is much different. You know, part of the recruitment would be they would come to the house for a tour, but that was about it. You weren't allowed to have the freshmen at the house at all. So like that was a huge difference that I thought was interesting. And then even just like, you know, as far as the houses go and like the weekends, like the guys were allowed to have like the sororities are totally dry, while the fraternities could have parties and alcohol all the time. So I thought that was interesting because we would get in trouble. You couldn't even have alcohol in the house. Like even if you live there, you can't have, and I still think it's that way. You can't have alcohol in the house, while the fraternities could throw parties every single night. So I don't know. It's just like though when you talk about inequalities, it's stuff like that there is a big difference. And I remember that as a female, your freshman year, isn't it like every term, like A term, no freshman could go to like fraternity parties. B term, only girls could go, but the guys couldn't go. And then C term, everyone could, like, it's stuff like that I'm kind of like, I don't know. I just never really understood why there was those differences, but I feel like it added on to making it more glaringly obvious that there were differences between the men and the women on campus and the way that we were treated and the way things like were handled and the different types of like processes and procedures when it came to Greek life. So I don't know. That's just like my thoughts and feedback as far as your question goes.
Yeah, thank you. I think I asked because I know like there's still definitely differences today. It's like not that obvious if they're like inequalities or if it's just because like the processes are so different. But I just wanted to know like how it was when you guys were here. So thank you.
I'd add to that it came to me when Pamela was talking was there's so much more history with the fraternities. So you got years and years of alumni. So when you have events or whatever, or you know, you've got years and years and years of alumni there that are also in support of it. And I was actually struck by this because I co-chair the Women's Impact Network for at WPI, which is a group of of women who are alum or friends, family of WPI, who give back to support and provide grants to things that support women. And one of the things that really struck me in 2020 is when we were down at the Art Museum for the women's choral groups show that they were doing for their families and so on. And well, one of the differences is, the men's choral group, Glee Club, whatever it's called today, has music. They have an endowment that they can buy music with every year. The women were having to use music from the men because they didn't have an endowment to buy it, and it's not something that the school had the money to provide. And so we basically, we heard that and we're like, this is a place we should try to help out and have an impact. And so and I don't know quite where it stands now with COVID. It's changed a lot of things in this last year, but we basically did a match to help them with fundraising so they could get money so that they could have their own music. So I think a lot of inequities that appear are there. Many of them are because of the long history that many of the men's organizations have had and the women's haven't. And a big part of that, I think, is the women speaking up and asking for help with those things and what they need to enable that to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing all that. It's interesting to see that perspective. I would hope that they have equal funding, or I'm not sure about the choral clubs, but or if they're separately gendered now. I'm not sure.
Well, it's again because they're all clubs or they're all things that, some group of alumni have come together and given a gift. Or like, for example, my sister-in-law, I mentioned my sister-in-law was class of 84, Phi Sig. Unfortunately, she got multiple myeloma and died quite young. Well, we did an endowed scholarship in her name. So there's an endowed scholarship for Phi Sig women every year now. But that's not making Phi Sig better. It's not like it was done specially because of Phi Sig. It was done by a group of us who loved Carla and wanted to do it in her name. And so a lot of these things have come about. That's why I talked about history. So a lot of these things have come from passionate alumni from some club or some group have chosen to provide money specifically for that organization. And I think as women, we've got to look for those. That's how I think about it. As a woman alum, how do I help address some of those now that there's more and more women alumni out there to help address those things? I think the school's doing their part, but a lot of these are those types of things where a gift was made.
Does anyone else have any questions for maybe the mechanical club or the hockey club? Anyone you want to hear from? I'd love to hear someone's favorite memories from maybe Eliana or Emily. What was your favorite memory from the club once you got started with the hockey club? Maybe like that first year or something. If you have anything that comes to mind.
I think my favorite memory was probably our first game, which was I think in like spring 2019 against Bentley. We'd been like practicing for a whole year at that point because we weren't allowed to play any games our first season, like according to the school. So we got to the end of the season and we like were begging to just please play one game and they let us do it. So that was really exciting. Like, we didn't end up winning, but just seeing the whole team come together and just have such a good time, that was really amazing.
I'm actually curious how is it for you guys to like recruit people to play, like women to play? Like, was it easy and you're like, oh wow, there's actually like a lot of other women that want to play, or did you have to like convince people?
I think that was definitely something we had a little bit of a hard time with because being in New England, we knew that this is a very big like women's hockey area. But we were freshmen at the time that we were trying to start the team, so we didn't really know anybody. And the people that we did know, a lot of them that wanted to play were freshmen, and we're kind of nervous about making commitments, especially because we couldn't give like information about like logistics at the time because we didn't know either. So that was definitely pretty hard. We had like a bunch of people sign up and then back out. So giving numbers to the school was kind of difficult, but it ended up working out.
Awesome. Good for you guys. I had no idea. Like, that's so cool.
Thank you.
Right, I think we're approaching 6, so if anyone has any last questions, or panelists, if you have anything that you want to share, feel free. I love hearing from all you guys, and thank you so much for being available to come speak to SWE. And we're all really excited for this whole week's event, or the series of events. So thank you again for being here and being willing to participate in our Monday sororities and clubs. Fun.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be part. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good night and a good week. Hope to see you at the rest of our events this week. And again, yeah, thank you to everyone for coming and participating.
Thank you.